Exposing bone-chilling family secrets at midnight, you won't believe this truth. The clock struck midnight, and with it came the kind of heavy silence that could swallow whole a scream. Just then, Abigail's heart raced. An ancient family secret was about to unravel itself like an old, faded tapestry. She flicked on the light, revealing dust motes dancing in the air, a reminder that something hidden deep beneath the bed wasn't just any ordinary object. It was a forgotten, leather-bound journal that had been left behind by her late grandfather, a man rumored to have dabbled in dark arts. Curiosity piqued, she grabbed the journal, the cover cracked and peeling, sending a shiver down her spine as her fingers brushed against the worn texture. Each page whispered secrets, not of mundane family gatherings but of sinister happenings, blood rituals performed under the cover of night, a family tree entwined with figures whose faces wore expressions of madness and despair. The air thickened with foreboding, like a storm waiting to break. With every turn of the page, she could feel the weight of history pressing against her chest. There were mentions of names, some familiar, others lost to time, paired with chilling accounts that made her stomach tighten in knots. There was something about a hidden room, a place of power where the family gathered to channel forces beyond comprehension. She could almost hear the whispers of the past creeping up her neck, making her skin prickle. What had they done in that room? As she read, shadows in the corners of her room deepened, growing darker, looming like the growing dread in her heart. Who else knew about this? Each revelation shook her to the core, leaving her breathless. The journal was more than just pages of ink. It was a ticking time bomb of secrets that demanded to be uncovered. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. What lay in store for Abigail as she reached the final page of the journal? The last entry hinted at a ritual to be performed on a blood moon, a rare celestial event marking only the darkest of intentions. She felt a chilling thrill as her gaze settled on a symbol etched in the margins, one she'd seen before, in her very own dreams. A frisson of realization struck her. Was it mere coincidence, or was she destined to confront this legacy, to unlock the door to buried truths? The night felt alive around her, pulsing with energy, and she knew in her heart this was just the beginning. What would she uncover next? Would that hidden room reveal more than just evil secrets? Would it reveal a part of herself she had never wished to explore? Abigail's breath hitched as she stared at the last page of the journal, the chilling symbol etched there practically glowing in the dim light of her room. The mundane world outside her window felt miles away, swallowed by the dark tendrils of this ancient legacy. She had spent years feeling like a stranger in her own family, and now she was staring into the abyss, her destiny intertwined with shadows she barely understood. Her fingers trembled as they brushed against the symbol again, a mark that felt almost sentient, as though it could open doors to realms both forbidden and enticing. Memories of whispered conversations between her parents filled her mind, words like legacy and betrayal echoing in the tension of the air. Abigail felt the room pulse, alive with expectation. But what was it truly alive with? Suddenly, a sharp rattle came from the old dresser across the room, a clatter that made her heart leap into her throat. She froze, the journal slipping from her grasp, landing open on the floor. The dusty pages fluttered like frightened birds. "Who's there?" she breathed, voice wavering, not wanting to acknowledge the creeping fear curling around her heart. Silence enveloped her, more daunting than any scream. Then, a faint creaking sound drew her attention to the far corner of the room. That's where the family portraits hung, their glassy eyes seeming to watch her, judging her curiosity. She stood slowly, driven by an instinct deeper than fear, a pull to confront whatever presence had settled into her space. As she approached the portraits, she felt the temperature drop, a tangible chill wrapping around her arms. The dusty frames held faces from generations past, stern and grave. But there was one portrait that seemed different, a woman with haunting beauty, shimmering dark eyes that bore into Abigail's soul. In the dim light, her smile was unsettling, a mix of invitation and warning. Just then, an unnatural gust swept through the room, making the curtains billow dramatically. Abigail stumbled back, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She was torn, either she was going mad or her family's dark past was eager to expose itself. The journal lay open, pages flipping in a frenzy as if being stirred by unseen hands. Abigail hesitated, heart thrumming wildly. The answer lay in those pages, but so did the dread of uncovering truths not meant to be known. The last entry loomed in her mind, a blood moon ritual set to unfold in just a few days. Without warning, a low growl reverberated in the silence, echoing from the shadows. She turned, eyes wide, scanning for the source of the sound. It felt as if the room itself took a breath, waiting for her to make a choice. Would she dig deeper, reopen family wounds long since sealed, or turn away from the darkness that beckoned? The haunting eyes of the portrait seemed to urge her forward. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything was connected, that this was all part of an ancient game played long before she was born. Flicking her gaze back to the journal, she understood this was not just about what was hidden in the past but about what was alive now. With a renewed sense of purpose, she knelt to fetch the journal. But as she did, a low whisper echoed in the room, threading through the fabric of her thoughts. "Find me before it's too late." Abigail's breath came in sharp gasps. Who had whispered? Was it a warning or a plea? She felt her heart racing again as she wondered, what lay waiting for her in that hidden room? Would she truly be ready for the truth once she found it? Abigail's pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the whispers of the wind outside. The air around her felt thick with tension, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could stand the gnawing dread gripping her gut. She had to know what lay beneath the surface of her family's history, but that realization only increased the weight on her shoulders. She picked up the journal, cold as ice in her hands. The pages fluttered again, and a gust that seemed to emerge from nowhere ruffled her hair, sending a shiver down her spine. The whisper echoed again, "Find me." It sent tingles racing up her arms, and all her instincts screamed for her to flee, but she couldn't. Curiosity was a double-edged sword, and right now, it cut deep. "What if I'm not strong enough?" she muttered, glancing at the portraits whose eyes bore into her. The woman in the middle, the one whose unsettling smile sent warnings through Abigail's core, seemed almost alive. Her expression shifted, as though she were coaxing Abigail toward an unknown path. Mustering her courage, she flipped through the journal. Scrawled entries leapt at her, each more frantic than the last. References to family members she barely knew flickered before her, along with names tied to the dark symbol waiting in the shadows. It spoke of ritualistic practices long buried and secrets that twisted through time like smoke. A loud crash jolted her back to the present. Something had fallen, a picture frame hitting the floor. Heart racing, she threw a glance at the far corner where shadows danced. When she turned back, the woman in the portrait seemed to be leaning closer, as if urging her to explore. Abigail's resolve hardened. She had to confront whatever hidden truth lingered in that room. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door to the hallway. The old wood creaked beneath her feet, each step echoing her pulse. She moved cautiously toward the end of the hall, where the door to the hidden room waited like a sentry. As she pushed her deeper into the darkness, her instincts warned her. Unnatural silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. She felt a presence behind her, a cold breath brushing against her ear. "Leave now, or join the whispers." The voice was low, gravelly, otherworldly. Abigail spun around, but no one was there. The oppressive silence returned, punctuated only by her ragged breath. Sweat beaded on her forehead as her heart pounded like a war drum. "Okay," she murmured under her breath, steeling herself. "Show me what you've got." She grabbed the handle of the heavy door, pushing it open just a crack. The air was stale and damp, filled with the scent of decay. Shadows slithered inside the room, writhing against the struggling light. Her heart shifted between panic and determination just as she stepped through the threshold. The moment she crossed into the hidden space, the temperature plummeted. Whispers danced around her, weaving panic within her steady resolve. The room felt alive, as if eager to expose the family's secrets. Abigail's eyes landed on a dark shape in the corner, a chest buried beneath dusty covers, adorned with the same symbol etched in the journal. Something deep inside told her to flee, yet it felt destined to stay. "What's in you?" she whispered, her voice shaking. When the chest creaked open, all hope slipped away. Memories locked tightly inside began to unravel like a ball of string. Just as she inched forward, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating figures intertwined in the shadows. "Abigail!" A familiar voice called, dragging her back into reality. Her mother? No, it couldn't be. Panic clawed at her throat. What had she just unleashed? In a heartbeat, she found herself at a crossroads, one road leading deeper into the secrets of her bloodline, the other back to whatever semblance of normalcy she had left. Run or uncover the truth, she whispered to herself, heart racing, desperately teetering on the edge of a choice. But who were the figures in the shadows? And would they allow her to leave with the truth intact? The air in the hidden room seemed to thrum, a heartbeat echoing her own frantic pulse. Abigail felt paralyzed, torn between running back to the safety of the hallway and stepping into the chaos swirling just beyond that chest. Shadows flickered against the walls, and the whispers grew louder, almost clamoring for attention, each voice dripping with urgency. With trembling fingers, she reached toward the luminous darkness. The light from the revelation was fading. Was she losing it? Just as she pulled her hand back, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. A young girl, no older than 10, with wide brown eyes and tangled hair. It was her sister, Emily, who had vanished a decade ago. Emily. The name burst from her lips, raw and instinctive. Hope and horror collided within her. But Emily only shook her head slowly, her lips moving soundlessly. Abigail's stomach twisted. This was impossible. The girl pointed to the chest, her expression pleading. Abigail's heart raced, caught between disbelief and the urgency in her sister's gaze. She ventured closer, the air thickening with anticipation. What was hidden in that chest? Each inch felt like a decade, time stretching painfully as the whispers coiled around her like a snake tightening its grip. Open it, the whispers crescendoed, a haunting chorus wrapping around her thoughts, blurring the line between fear and curiosity. Abigail knelt before the chest, the cold wood sending a jolt through her fingers. She wanted to turn back, just bolt out of the room, but the allure was magnetic, pulling her in. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, almost pleading. "Find the truth." The voices merged into one, a plea so desperate, it etched itself into her heart. Fighting back tears, Abigail lifted the latch. The chest creaked open, as if releasing a long-held breath. Inside lay documents piled high, letters yellowed with age, and a small velvet bag that looked utterly out of place. Her hands trembled as she picked up a brittle letter. The words crumbled beneath her touch, and she read quickly, her breath hitching at the revelation. In the darkness, blood calls to blood, the symbol protects those who serve. Confusion washed over her. What was this? Before she could make sense of it, the air quivered again, the shadows reshaping into familiar forms. Her mother, her father, each drifting closer, faces etched with sorrow. "Mom?" Abigail's voice trembled, both terrified and relieved. But the woman's face tightened in anguish. "Abigail, you mustn't linger," she urged, her voice a soft wail. "Leave this place and never return." "Why?" Abigail cried out, desperate for answers, for a connection to the girl beside her. The shadows of her past loomed large, cocooning her in unresolved pain. "You won't understand yet," her mother replied, tears brimming in her eyes. "The secrets are too dangerous." "Abigail." Emily's voice rang out, urgent and unyielding. "You have to believe." In that moment, Abigail saw the dread pooling around them, felt the weight of ancestral shadows threatening to crush her under their secrets. She couldn't lose what she still had left. "I want to let you go again," she shouted, echoing through time, fighting against the very darkness trying to pull her family apart. A jolt of energy coursed through the room, shaking the foundation as if a storm rattled their very souls. Shadows darted back and forth, whispers rose to agonizing heights. Abigail knew there was no turning back. What if the truth she uncovered was more awful than she ever imagined? "It's time to uncover the truth, Abigail." Emily beckoned, her image flickering like a dying flame. As reality warped around her, Abigail's resolve burned bright. "I won't walk away," she vowed, eyes fixed on the letters and the strange bag. But what might she unleash? With one last glance at the familiar faces slipping back into darkness, she pulled the velvet bag closer. This was only the beginning of understanding the haunting legacy she was born into. "What have you brought me to?" she whispered into the frantic stillness, and in the murky depths of her family's coven, a grotesque laughter echoed back. Abigail's heart pounded in her ears, drowned out only by the eerie laughter that twisted around her. It slithered through the air, wrapping around her like a choking vine. The letters, the bag, they were mere pieces of a dark puzzle she had not yet begun to comprehend. She clutched the velvet sack tightly, feeling the soft fabric against her skin, its allure as tempting as a siren's call. The whispers grew stronger, demanding her attention, a palpable force urging her deeper into the unknown. Emily's face flickered beside her, hovering between this world and the next, desperation written all over her features. "Open it, Abigail. You must," Emily implored, her voice barely a murmur above the chaos. Gathering her trembling resolve, Abigail undid the drawstring of the bag. The fabric unfurled like a dark flower, revealing its contents, a single smooth stone, black and glossy, inscribed with unfamiliar symbols that flickered ominously in the dim light. It felt cool and heavy in her palm, as if it were alive, buzzing with hidden energy. "What is this?" she gasped, her eyes glued to the symbols that seemed to dance before her very eyes. Her mother's figure swayed in the shadows, eyes wide with terror. "You must protect yourself. Do not succumb to what you are about to discover." But her warning was swallowed by the shadows as a wind surged through the hidden room, gusts pulling at Abigail's hair and clothes. The letters scattered about her like leaves in a storm. She took a step back, adrenaline coursing through her veins, and felt the wall solid behind her as if it were the only safety left in this emotional cyclone. "Abigail, you have to trust your heart." Emily's voice trembled, the last remnants of her presence flickering like a dying ember. With a deep breath, Abigail held the stone up to the faint light. "What do you want me to do?" she pleaded, directing her question at the object as if it could answer. The whispers jerked abruptly, silent as she waited. Moments stretched endlessly. The shadows warped around her. She could no longer tell where they ended and she began. But then, as if answering her, images surged in her mind. Flickering scenes from her childhood, shadowy memories twisted with grief, a house filled with laughter, then empty quietness, bursts of happy moments collapsing into desperate loneliness. A cry emerged from Abigail's throat as the darkness surged in, the breath stolen from her lungs. The laughter morphed into chilling screams, the shadows writhing in a furious dance. "No! Stop!" she shouted, her fear transforming into determination. In a sudden rush, memories twisted into something more sinister. She saw the chest flash open again, revealing faces beyond her understanding, ancestors, lost relatives bound by unspeakable deeds and horrors. Blood. Blood between them. The truth rained down, hitting her like icy water, a legacy stained by darkness. Chosen for a greater purpose, a voice echoed, resonating like thunder. Abigail felt her breath quicken. No, this can't be true. She wanted to throw the stone away, erase everything that bound her to this curse, but in that moment, the stone pulsed, a heartbeat in her own palm, anchoring her to the truth she had to face. "I won't be a pawn in your game," she screamed, eyes blazing with defiance, struggling against the pull of what lay ahead. Suddenly, the room glowed brightly, the shadows shrieked in fury as the light poured over them. Abigail braced herself, eyes narrowed, searching the darkness for Emily, for solace, for a hint at understanding. "Make your choice, Abigail," the shadows murmured, "join us or face the consequences." What kind of choice was that? A sense of dread washed over her, tightening her chest. "What are the consequences?" She cried out, desperation creeping into her voice. The laughter echoed, sinister yet something else, something inviting. As her heart raced, a thought crystallized in her mind. Was she really ready to uncover the truth? "Choose wisely," the shadows hissed, and just like that, the light began to dim once more, leaving Abigail suspended between enlightenment and despair. With the stone still clutched tightly, she braced herself for the next revelation. Could she possibly face the darkness she was bound to? The echoes of laughter faded into silence, leaving only questions swirling in her mind. What dawned on her was just the start, and she had yet to scratch the surface of this terrible legacy. But what if this truth was just the prelude to something much worse? The shadows receded slightly, the last remnants of light dimming into a soft glow that barely illuminated the room. Abigail felt an unsettling chill. The air was thick with unease and uncertainty. She squeezed the stone in her hand, its smooth surface a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around her. A choice lay before her, but clarity was elusive. "Join us or face the consequences," the voices echoed ominously, a dark chorus resonating in the depths of her mind. "Consequences," she whispered, the word rolling off her tongue like a bitter pill. What could they possibly mean? Gritting her teeth, she fixed her gaze on the spectral shadows lurking just beyond her periphery. They seemed to pulse with a life of their own, mirroring her racing heartbeat, breath hitching in her throat. Abigail recalled the faces she had seen, those lost relatives, trapped in a past that held secrets she wouldn't understand. Was she too late to change her fate? The weight of the stone pressed painfully into her palm as she struggled with the burden of her heritage. Suddenly, a flash of fleeting memory revisited her. A sun-drenched afternoon at the old family home, laughter echoing through the halls, a stark contrast to the darkness engulfing her now. Could joy really exist alongside this malevolence that seemed inherited? She clenched the stone tighter, feeling the sharp edges bite into her skin. "Why me?" Abigail shouted. The shadows shifted, whispering incomprehensibly as if discussing her very essence. And then silence. An overwhelming hush settled, a moment pregnant with anticipation. "Your bloodline demands it," a voice intoned, deep and resonant, vibrating through the air around her. The figure of her mother flickered in the resulting stillness, pain etched upon her features. "You have to decide, Abigail," she urged, voice steady but marred with dread. "You can break the cycle. You have the chance to end it." Tears stung Abigail's eyes, an emotional tempest threatening to erupt. "But how?" she asked, desperation creeping in. She needed to understand. At that moment, the shadows converged into shape, a grotesque ensemble before her. Each figure bore slashed features, eyes filled with a haunting longing. Abigail noticed the symbols on the stone glowing brighter, pulsing with her frantic heartbeat. "Face the truth, and you shall unlock the path forward," spoke the shadows, their voices unison yet distinct, each syllable a chilling affirmation. As the shadows merged, Abigail felt the stone quake gently in her grasp. What truths did she fear confronting? Was it her family's history, the bloodstains lurking beneath their cheerful facade? Images flashed, broken relationships, whispered betrayals, and unaccounted sins. "Stop!" she screamed, voice raw. "What do you want from me?" "Your decision will seal your fate," echoed the shadows, swirling around her like an impending storm. "Are you willing to embrace your destiny?" Abigail's heart thundered in her chest. Destiny. Was this truly her destiny, harnessing dark forces, unraveling intentions buried under layers of deception? Or was it merely an illusion spun by the very legacy she wanted to escape? This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about generations before her, about family loyalty, sacred or cursed. With each passing second, the heaviness weighed more heavily on her heart, almost suffocating her. The shadows began to dissipate, leaving only flickering fragments of their presence behind. Abigail took a deep breath, a sense of resolve crystallizing. Whatever truth awaited her, she would face it head-on. "Show me," she demanded, the plea reverberating in the silence.in response. The stone vibrated violently, illuminating the room with an eerie light. The laughter returned, now bright with feverish energy, wrapping around her in a deceptive embrace, but as the shadows reformed at the edge of her mind, excitement mixed with terror bubbled up inside her. She was on the precipice of unveiling something monumental, something rich with danger and revelation. "Next," she breathed, the tremors in her voice laced with resolve. What awaited her behind the veil? A truth that could either shatter or unite her fractured family? As the light intensified and her fate lingered in the balance, one question loomed larger than all the others: would she have the courage to unearth what lay beneath the surface? The vibration of the stone escalated, its glow swelling like a heartbeat come alive. Abigail felt pulled into its luminescence, her surroundings dissolving into a mass of swirling colors and shapes. She gasped, caught between reality and the unknown, heart racing faster than the lights dancing before her. There was no going back now. Suddenly, the shimmering light solidified into a scene, a memory, perhaps? She stood in what looked like her childhood living room, yet it felt distorted, like an old photograph bleached by time. The furniture was draped in heavy dust, though sunlight streamed through the cracked windows, casting eerie patterns around the room. And there were voices. Muffled, but beckoning. Familiar whispers that felt like an open wound. Abigail strained to listen. "Your fate is no different from ours," an echoing voice murmured, dripping with despair. It was her grandmother, her features strikingly similar to Abigail's. The nostalgia mingled with fear, dredging deep emotions she thought long buried. "You must heed the call," another voice cracked, frenzied and urgent. "Ignore the shadows, and they will come for you." It was her mother's warning, again, but this was a younger version of her, full of unyielding hope. The sight wrenched her heart. A hesitation filled the room, thick with dread. Abigail's gut twisted as she stepped closer. Why did these echoes of the past feel like a trap? The shadows she had seen earlier flitted at the edges, watching, waiting. They seemed to swirl around her like a vice. Desperation clawed at her. "What is this?" she yelled, seething frustration mixed with fear. The memory shifted, dragging Abigail with it into another scene, this time outside. She stood in a darkened backyard, moonlight bathing the ground in silver. Shadows flickered in the corners of her vision, swarming, whispering amongst themselves as if sharing secrets that shouldn't belong to her. "Free yourself, Abigail," a voice implored. It was a knotted sound, taut with fear and urgency. "Do not repeat the sins of your blood. They will destroy you." Her hands trembled around the stone. The energy was pulse-quickening, alive with the blood of her ancestors, tethering her to something greater and darker. The shadows merged closer, forming shapes more defined, faces of anguish, each one carrying the weight of their twisted histories, a gallery of grief etched deeply in their eyes. "I want answers," she shouted, carrying the raw intensity of her plea, vibrant with anger and fear. The shadows recoiled suddenly, the atmosphere shifting. The surroundings twisted again. This time, she was dropped into a flash of blinding light, loud screams echoing in her ears. It was chaos, cries of pain, of betrayal. A name rang out sharp and piercing in the chaos: Evelyn. "You have to stop this." That name, the echo struck her heart like a blow. Evelyn was long gone. Her name was etched on the family tree as a haunting note, a ghost that lingered in whispered conversations. "What did you do?" Abigail gasped, her bare feet touching the floor in desperation. "What did you do, Grandma?" The shadows twirled wildly, a cacophony of voices colliding together as they roared, "You will learn. You must before it's too late." Abigail felt the weight of the world settle upon her shoulders. Each heartbeat resonated, matching the frantic pulse of the stone. She had to confront this legacy, to untangle the threads binding her to this suffocating darkness. As the noise faded, engulfing her in a heavy silence, she clenched her fists. Only now did she realize, the truth was like a bone sharp and dangerous, waiting to be unearthed. Would she dare to dig? "Show me the heart of the truth," she cried, a flame igniting her resolve. The shadows stilled, their whispers transformed into a low hum as the stone pulsed one last time, and the world around her began to spin again. Images flashed before her eyes, faces of her family, bloodied histories, and truths that made her skin crawl. With one last look of defiance, Abigail closed her eyes. She had chosen confrontation, and the shadows welcomed it with an enticement that sent chills crawling along her spine. But would she survive the unearthing? As the light enveloped her once more, she felt the pulse of her ancestors, the question burning bright in her chest: what truths awaited her in the depths of their darkness? And as the last of the light flickered, everything went black. Darkness enveloped Abigail like a heavy blanket, stifling and cold. She held her breath, listening as a low, throbbing hum replaced the chaotic screams and flickering lights. With a sudden gasp, her eyes snapped open, revealing a stark, sterile room. It felt entirely foreign, shockingly normal compared to the surreal landscapes she had just traversed. The walls were painted an unnaturally bright white, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic. Where was she? Panic threatened to creep in, but somehow, she managed to quell it. She sat on a stark metal chair, its coldness biting into her skin. The stone lay on the table in front of her, glowing softly, almost reassuringly. But the memory of the shadows still danced at the corners of her vision, taunting her. As she leaned forward, the hum pulsated around her, reverberating through her bones. Suddenly, a door creaked open. A woman stepped in. Her face was obscured, a shadow against the bright lights. A chill rushed down Abigail's spine. Could this be another memory? The woman approached, her features coming into focus. Her eyes were the same fierce emerald as Abigail's, and her hair fell in waves of dark silk. "Abigail," she said, voice smooth yet laced with urgency. "You've been chosen. We need you to understand." "Where am I? Who are you?" Abigail responded, her voice shaking with a mix of fear and defiance. "I'm Evelyn," the woman said, looking directly into Abigail's eyes. "I am your grandmother, but we don't have time for that right now." Evelyn's sudden appearance felt like an ice shard lodged deep in Abigail's heart. "You can't trust me, I know this is overwhelming." Evelyn leaned closer, urgency etched across her face. "You've touched the stone of our ancestors, and now the truth is unraveling. The shadows, they aren't just memories. They're warnings." The weight of those words made Abigail's stomach twist. "Warnings? What do you mean?" Evelyn's gaze darkened, her expression tightening. "You're in danger. The family has a history of disturbances. Something dark is awakening, and only you can confront it before it consumes everything." Abigail sputtered, "What does that even mean? What happened to you?" "To us? You are not just an observer, Abigail. You are the key." Evelyn's voice hardened. "The shadow you saw, it was me, torn apart by the very sins I failed to stop. Our bloodline is cursed, and you have the chance to break it." The words hung heavily in the air, suffocating and oppressive. Abigail's pulse sped up, terror slicing through her. "Cursed? How do I break something like that? I can't even understand. Face the source of the darkness. You have to return to where it all began, the place of our greatest sorrow." Evelyn looked down, pain shadowing her face. "It's where I failed and where you can succeed." The room spun, gravity tugging hard at her. But where is that?" The corners of Evelyn's mouth tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "You know it as the old mansion at the end of Eldridge Street. It is where we were shattered." Abigail felt the stark reality of that address weigh on her. The old mansion had been nothing but a crumbling relic of her family's past memories stained with grief she had long tried to forget. Evelyn reached toward the stone, her fingers brushing against its glowing surface. You can harness its power. It will guide you. Just then, a thunderous crash reverberated through the air, shaking the floor. The lights flickered and hummed louder, a warning echoing through the confines of the room. Shadows began to creep back in, swirling ominously around Evelyn and Abigail. Go now! Evelyn shouted as the shadows lunged at her. You must leave. The time is short. Abigail's heart raced as she hesitated, gripped by an urge to help, but instinctively recognizing the danger. But I can't just stay or go. The choice is yours. Remember, face the darkness. Evelyn's form flickered like a dying light. Abigail made her decision. She dashed for the door, panic propelling her forward as shadows reached for her with grasping tendrils. The last thing she saw was Evelyn, torn between worlds, the shadows clawing at her essence. The door slammed shut behind her with a resounding finality. Breathless, Abigail stumbled into the unknown corridor that stretched before her, but a new clarity flickered in her mind. Facing the shadows would bring her to the truth, but at what cost? Would she have the strength to confront her family's dark legacy? And where was the mansion hiding, waiting to reveal its twisted history? Every breath she took echoed with uncertainty, and Abigail could feel the darkness lurking just beyond the walls, ready to swallow her whole. As uncertainty threatened to engulf her, she whispered to herself, I have to find the truth, I have to face it. But would the truth be her salvation or her doom? Abigail's heart thudded in her chest like a stampede, urgency fueling her escape down the narrow corridor. The fluorescent lights flickered erratically above her, casting dancing shadows that seemed to claw at her heels. She could still hear Evelyn's echoing voice in her mind, desperate and filled with pain. The mansion loomed larger now, a sinister silhouette against the backdrop of her thoughts. What was waiting for her there? What horrors lay beyond those crumbling walls? Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of her family's dark secret pressing down on her shoulders. She had to uncover it. She had to return to where it all began. Darting around a corner, Abigail stumbled into another room. It was filled with hospital equipment discarded and gathering dust, a stark contrast to her sterile prison moments ago. It had a cold, metallic smell that twisted her stomach as she scanned the area. Was this part of the facility? Or a remnant of something more sinister? A series of painful voices echoed from a distance, echoes of forgotten memories and silent screams. Abigail pressed her palms against her ears to block them out, but it was no use. They beckoned like sirens, pulling her closer to the truth she both yearned for and dreaded. Suddenly, a door flew open at the far end of the room, and out stepped a stocky man with an unkempt beard and wild eyes. His features glistened with sweat, and his hands trembled slightly as he pointed a finger at her. You shouldn't be here. He shouted, his voice low and gravelly. They'll find you. They'll know you're awake. Who? What do you mean? What is happening? Abigail felt fear coil tightly in her stomach. She had no time for riddles. The man stepped closer, urgency radiating from him. Listen to me. The shadows in the mansion, they're not just curses. They're sentinels. You opened the door, and now they're hunting you. Open the door. She felt the gravity of his words, an unwelcome reminder of her choice to escape. Shadows lurking in the mansion? It was worse than she'd thought. That he glanced nervously toward the hallway, then lowered his voice. You're the last of your bloodline to face them. You must harness the stone's power and confront your family's past. If you don't, it won't just take you, Abigail. It'll take everyone. A chill shot through her. She took a tentative step back. But I don't know how. I barely understand what is going on. The man hesitated, his eyes narrowing. You have to trust your instincts. Your grandmother left clues, pieces to the puzzle. You're not alone in this. He offered a brief nod, almost as if summoning courage. Find the heart of the mansion. The old library. It holds answers. The walls felt like they were closing in as the whispers grew louder, rasping threats the gloom wove into their shrouded corners. Wait! Abigail called, but he was gone, slipping back into shadow like a ghost. A rush of adrenaline surged through her. She couldn't stand still. She sprinted for the door he'd pointed to earlier, heart racing, knowing time was not on her side. As she pushed through, the weight of insistent whispers began circling her, growing stronger, entangled with her own fear. The mansion beckoned, an unsettling presence greeting her. The air was thick with anticipation. Was she ready to face what lay ahead? As she stepped into the dimly lit corridor, it felt as if eyes were upon her, unseen watchers observing her every move. Here goes nothing, she muttered, steeling herself. With every stride, the corridors twisted, stretching as if the house itself was alive, trying to hinder her path. The library loomed ahead, but shadows writhed, blocking the way. They slithered and curled, reinforcing the thickening atmosphere of dread. Abigail's pulse raced at the sight. I can do this, she whispered to herself, though uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Could she really unlock the mysteries and face the darkness waiting to consume her? A flicker of determination burned bright within her, refusing to be snuffed out. As she stood before the heavy oak doors of the library, she hesitated. Would she find salvation among the pages of forgotten books or another layer of nightmare? With a deep breath, she shoved against the door, feeling the weight of her family's legacy chilling her to the bone, and just before she crossed the threshold, a chilling laugh echoed down the hall, reverberating through the air like ice slicing skin. Welcome back, Abigail. It's time to play. She froze, her heart pounding like thunder. What awaited her in this den of shadows? The truth was closer than ever, but at what cost? Abigail hesitated, the door to the library heavy in front of her. She could feel the pulsing energy of the stone in her pocket, a constant reminder of her family's sinister past. Plunging into the depths of her thoughts, she was acutely aware of the shadows gathering in the corners, nurtured by the fear flickering to life in her belly. Welcome back, Abigail, echoed the chilling voice, reverberating through the endless silence. She swallowed hard, every instinct screaming at her to turn back, to seek safety. But Evelyn's words surged back into her mind, face the darkness. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The ancient wood groaned under pressure, and darkness spilled out like an invasive tide. As she stepped inside, the scent of aged paper and dust clamped around her, mingling with the bitter scent of something long forgotten. The library was vast, towering bookshelves stretching endlessly, filled with knowledge and secrets. Dim light flickered from candle sconces, casting shadowy shapes around the room. With tentative steps, Abigail crossed the threshold, heart racing as she scanned the room for clues. Where would she find the answers to the tangled mess of her family's history? Look closer, Abigail, the voice whispered again, but this time, it felt close, dangerously close. She followed the sound, drawing nearer to an ornate desk in the center of the room. Papers lay scattered, yet something about the inked lines pulled her in. She couldn't resist. As she approached, a sudden gust of cold air whipped through the room, scattering the papers like leaves. Her heart thundered. She felt the weight of unseen eyes upon her, shadows coiling around the corners of the room. But just as quickly, a sense of calm settled over her. This was it. This was why she was here. She knelt before the desk, sifting through the letters. Words gasped from the papers: rituals, bloodlines, power. Then, one letter caught her attention with its bold writing: balance must be restored. It was marked with the same symbol as the stone. A chill raced down her spine. Restore balance, she murmured, piecing together forgotten stories of her family. The whispers grew louder, urging her to unveil their secrets. But at what price? Suddenly, the walls seemed to shudder, shadows pulling closer, echoing laughter creeping into her ears, teasing and sinister. Abigail straightened, her resolve hardening. She would not back down now. There was too much at stake, but then the laughter transformed into growls, filling the air with a suffocating dread. "You won take her." A voice roared, and a figure darted from the shadows. A spectral apparition of Emily appeared right before her, shimmering with energy. Shock coursed through Abigail. "Emily? What happened to you?" she gasped, desperate to reach out. "Time is short. Take the stone, unlock your family's fate," Emily implored, her voice strained. "You have the key to save us all." Abigail clutched the stone tightly, memories flashing of the times she tried to understand her family, the laughter, the pain, the secrets that lingered, like cobwebs, ready to be torn away. But how? She shouted above the cacophony, threatening to consume her. Emily's form flickered, and she waved a hand toward the desk. "The truth is buried in your bloodline. You must confront the darkness, make the choice. Now." An electrical energy pulsed through the air as Abigail realized what she had to do. She flung open the drawer of the desk, heart racing as she found a small, weathered book, practical, detailing the dark arts claimed by her ancestors. Inside lay a path to the hidden horrors and potential salvation. "Light the candles," Emily shouted as shadows surged from the walls, hungry for her energy, clawing at her skin, pulling her towards the brink of despair. Without thinking, Abigail turned, scrambling to light them one by one, each flicker pushing back the encroaching darkness, the glow illuminating those lingering in shadows. She could feel the shadows writhing in pain. The light was its enemy. "Now! Read it," Emily urged, her form flickering in and out like an old film reel. A surge of courage filled Abigail as she opened the book and began to chant the incantation. The words flowed through her, ancient and powerful, an invocation that echoed through the library, resonating with the pulsating rhythm of her heart. The stone in her hand pulsed in synchronization, a talisman summoning the energy held within. The shadows screamed, contorting and wrestling against the light's omnipresence. Abigail felt immense power building, her blood boiling as the darkness writhed, her ancestral ties weaving into a protective shield engulfing her. "Balance must be restored," she shouted, her voice ringing louder than the chaos surrounding her. With one final surge of confidence, she channeled everything she felt into the core of the incantation. The shadows convulsed and screeched, trying to resist, but it was too late. With a deafening roar, the shadows dispersed, the light engulfing the entire room in a blinding brilliance, and then silence. Abigail opened her eyes, the air was still. Gone were the whispers, the icy fingers of dread. She looked around, the library now luminous, filled with warmth. The book lay open before her, the symbols glowing softly, and in the remnants of the dark, figures emerged, familiar faces locked in moments of joy. Her family stood around her, once lost, now free. Even Emily glowed brilliantly, her sorrow transformed into serenity. "You did it." She smiled, the light reflecting in her eyes. "You conquered the shadows." Tears brimmed in Abigail's eyes as relief washed over her. "But how? What will happen now?" Emily stepped closer, her radiant form glowing like the sun. "You've freed us from the chains of a cursed past, Abigail. You've written a new chapter for our family." The weight of the knowledge settled as Abigail realized that facing the darkness had led to this moment. Reflection, connection, and the grace of truth had rewritten their fate. As the warmth enveloped her, Abigail understood, this wasn't an end, but a beginning, a chance to build anew, free from the shadow of their history. Standing before her family, Abigail felt the pulse of time continue, their spirits free, a new legacy formed in the light. The stone lay silently in her hand, its energy replacing dread with hope. "Thank you," she whispered to the vibrant figures around her, heart swelling with gratitude. "Now, let us move forward together," Emily smiled, and with that, they embraced the light, healing, uniting, and stepping into a future shimmering bright with possibility, and the shadows fell away into forgotten memories once more. But remember, dear followers, this journey doesn't end here. It's only the beginning of more electrifying stories ahead. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive content. Smash that like button now to help fuel the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. And, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support echoes louder than the voices of the past. Let us shine even brighter together.